It started.
Nice. Then welcome everyone to Roundtable number 9. Today is Tuesday, 7th of November. And we are going to discuss a few updates that happened in the past 2 weeks. Also look as usual at the network health of the past 2 weeks. And right after that, we are going into the newly proposed guidelines version 5.4. We are trying to have a shorter agenda at the beginning, so we try to limit the call this time to 60 minutes. So the open forum might start after 30 minutes and last for 30 minutes. Let's get into the updates. So some of you may noticed Wax Labs was updated. In case you're hitting the old version, just reload with or empty your cache and you will see the new version. We need to address this issue with the developers, and it holds all kinds of updates. So it's from the visual side, it's much more comprehensible now. We now have also a nice a nice format for the proposal content itself, which looks much better than the old version. You can also include images now, which is pretty neat. This was not possible in the past. This one has no deliverables actually, so let's look at one with the deliverables. Milestones here, all tidied up, all information grabbable inside, nice pages for the proposer, and which past proposals he has been submitting, and also some details where we just accumulate data that we have on chain, like category. Give it a visit. Let us know any feedback that you might have in the governance channel directly. And have fun with Labs Wax 3.0. There's still funds in there, so if you have good ideas of what you think will contribute value to the ecosystem and you need funding to accomplish it, give Wax Labs a visit and maybe go with a proposal.
And if you have an average idea, you can still reach out and maybe we can work something out to make it a good idea.
Right. For that, you can also visit the Telegram group. It's linked at the bottom. No, it's actually not. We need to do that because some of the discussion and the feedback happens in the official Telegram group for the Wax Labs. So if you're not in there, make sure to add it to your groups and start getting engaged with current proposals and maybe your own proposal. That's it from Wax Labs. Credit where credit is due also, since Detroit has built the last Wax Labs version, they also built this Wax Labs version. The developers built this for us through Wax Labs funding, and they did an amazing job relaunching it on the newest technology. What I can tell is it's still React. It uses under the hood some of the new WarkKit libraries to accomplish connections to the chain. The login is now also WarkKit. It has been URL on the old side, so many quality of life improvements also in there. And once we release the source potentially, it can also act as a great example of how to build a dApp in React nowadays. On to the next one. I want to highlight an important Twitter space the Wax team is having tomorrow, November 8th. Lucas will be on stage and he will be talking about the Q4 tech updates that are incoming. So make sure to visit the Wax.io Twitter, leave a follow, also help us with getting some visibility on those posts, and also maybe tune in and get educated on what is going to happen in the next 3 months from the website. And Lucas is very responsive and talkative, so if you have any questions, just join and ask them, and Lucas will pick them up for sure. And that leads us also to the Wax.io medium, which has greatly improved over the past months. The Wax team is very is putting out many articles to help onboard new users. So in case you're getting questioned a lot, general topics on the Wax blockchain, just have a look at the Wax.io medium. It explains things very well and very easy, like the resources concept at the moment, or just general account security, and how you can maximize your Wax creations impact with DebRadar and CryptoSlam. So essentially how to get your collection or your dApp listed on DebRadar and CryptoSlam. They're sharing their experiences on the medium. Give it a read, maybe an upvote also. Many of the posts find a lot of appreciation nowadays. We can only help with giving more visibility to it. On to the next one. That's it from the update side. We are currently almost finalizing the rework of our OIG.wax.io website. The next election will be held on it. And stay tuned for this week, where we later will announce the coming election, which is going to happen inside November. The official announcement for this will follow, and also the relaunch website will follow. That's it from our backlog for now. As you may know, part of our backlog is also we are currently conducting technical evaluations 5.3T1. In the new bi-weekly cycle, we are looking at the past 2 weeks of data of validators and uptimes. So the time frame now is 2 weeks. And we are also looking at missed blocks at the moment, missed rounds at the moment. There has been only one incident in the past 2 weeks, which is pretty good. On the mainnet, on the Wax mainnet, on the testnet, we had some minor incident on the 25th with a few missed blocks and a few missed rounds. This was unfortunate, but it was due to some misconfiguration. But this guild has also moved up to top 21, and the producer on mainnet was not working quite well at the beginning. What do we mean by that? They had the day the voting happened, right after the voting happened, they were just having no transactions. We later found out it is a setup or configuration issue, because the spammer could actually reach the producer with spammy transactions, but this was resolved very quickly. So we're not seeing that anymore. But as we see in the past 3 or 4 days, we are receiving low transaction rates across some other BPs. Might be that something is going on, but it's all well within a range where we operate nicely as a network. We didn't have any double producing incidents in the past 14 days, which is pretty nice. This happens occasionally. And overall, there's nothing out of range for now. Maybe some block time is low in some instances, but that should be fine. Empty blocks. Also, some issues could arise in the next day, so make sure if you find your guild inside this list that you have a look at your BP and apply the necessary changes or fixes to make sure your producer is running well. Nothing else to report from the network health side. On the Wax mainnet, producers are running pretty well, or the block producer benchmarks are looking pretty well. We just see some occasional failures in CPU time that we set as a requirement. That doesn't lead to an average, which leads to a penalty. So everyone is operating within our set range at the moment. No incidents on that part. Right after that, we are looking at the guideline, at our proposed guideline changes. It's still a draft, and we are working out some changes we want to see in 5.4. So I'm presenting to you now that we are moving the Atomic Assets API from Quality of Life API section into a separate TechOps role. Certainly the Atomic Assets API is a very important part of our ecosystem. We think it deserves an own TechOps role, but that also leads to more space inside the Quality of Life API section, which was limited to 2 points. And talking about Quality of Life APIs, so the score will be probably the same as it is right now, 1 point for Atomic Assets API with enough SLR. This will get then removed from Quality of Life APIs, and we are currently planning to add the new IBC bridge to the Quality of Life APIs with the following conditions. It needs to be announced in the bp.json, it needs to be publicly available, and whenever we check or the validators check it, it needs to have the latest blocks indexed. So it should be on sync. We will have the chance to discuss this right after I went through the list. What we also are doing is, in the past, when you submitted a product or your initial product, we granted a maximum of 2 points for those products if they didn't have an introduction call with us. What is the introduction call? So we internally call it product discovery call, which means that we want to get presented this product, which should be worth more than 2 points, or in the new guidelines more than 1 point. We want to get that presented and the features, and we want to know how the maintenance is going to work out over time and which features are going to be implemented in the next month, so that we can see that the product contribution is indeed long-term and will not get abandoned. But we are currently reducing the maximum points for an unintroduced product to 1 point. So if you want to have more than 1 point with your product, you need to schedule a product discovery call with the OIG, use the official Calendly, and we can talk through the product and potentially also discuss or agree together on the score for it and what shall be done to include to maintain the score. And Kefar has something to add at this point.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight that this only impacts new submissions and not your existing ones. Just as this is not clear from the bullet point there. So some people might think they now have to schedule introduction calls for stuff that's already evaluated.
All right, let's add this right after that. Thanks for that clarification. That's indeed true. Whenever you submit a new product and you want to receive a score of more than 1 point, book a call with us and we will talk through it. So this will be a new rule in Guidelines 5.4. And then the next thing we are going to change is, since we added 2 new pairs to the Delphi Oracle, which is USDT USD and USDC USD, we will require guilds to submit a total of 5 pairs to get the bonus points for the Delphi Oracle. So make sure to adjust your Oracle to push also prices for USDT and USDC until those guidelines are final. And then some minor change, because we didn't have that defined yet. Backups of Hyperion need to be backups of full history, and we are not granting points for partial history on Hyperion. Kiefer?
I just wanted to say that this is something that's also open to discussion, where we want to get feedback from the guilds, because we were in the because right now we are granting 0.5 points for full history snapshots, and after our internal discussion, we decided that partial history snapshots aren't worth 0.25 points, but we would like to get your feedback on this too.
Right. Full Hyperion history is 30 terabytes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say. So do we discuss that at the end of the call more in depth, or?
Yeah, sure. And that's where we can head into the open forum discussion. So please raise your hand, name the topic you want to talk about, and then let's get into discussing those items. Michael.
I guess I have two things to talk about, but
That's
one
fine.
is the easier one is probably IBC. I know I'm running all of them. It's an interesting, there's a WAX service, that runs it, but you need to have proof servers on whatever bridge you're going to. So just doing WAX isn't all that great. I mean, it's good to have more of them, but ultimately, if they're going to EOS, you need an EOS node too, a Telos, a UX, anything else that gets added in. So
right.
The definition of, and I don't know. Do you do partial points for the more you offer, the better it is? I don't know. But I wanted to point out, and happy to pop the hood, show you how it works. We're going to figure out how to check them, but I can definitely help out with that as can.
Okay, let's stick with the IBC topic then for now. Pavel, any concern you want to share about that?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, maybe I do not understand the definition. What's an IBC? Please clarify it for me, because maybe I missed this part previously.
Maybe Michael can give us a breakdown of how it actually works.
Happy to. IBC, it's a near and dear term for me. It's inter-blockchain communication. So basically the Analog Coalition funded the development of the bridging between different analog chains.
Oh.
It's trustless, so you don't have to run oracles that actually do it. There's these services that basically generate proofs for the blocks. And so if you've been on Alcor is the first one. I think D5 maybe uses it. Anyway, you can bridge assets, selected assets, between chains. So you can take WAX over to EOS, or EOS over to WAX, or Telos, or whatever. So there's these services ultimately that help allow the browser to do trustless verification on both chains. It's a backend database, proof information in there, and then there's a front end WebSocket, and it's made to be decentralized. Anybody can run it, whatever. That's, I think, the back end of it. So the Lightproof DB is the back end, and then there's a front end WebSocket. This is posting links. Anyway, long story short, you need both sides of it. So if you want to go EOS to WAX, you need to have the EOS IBC nodes and everything running with it, and you need to have the WAX side of it as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
So main thing was to point out that there's up to 4 right now. There can be more, obviously, if other chains get accepted and integrated in, but right now it's really just the main 4.
The main 4. Okay.
That started with the IB. They launched it. The main 4: EOS, WAX, Telos, and UX all have it enabled. And like I say, I know Alcor's using it. They've helped us work out a lot of bugs over the past months.
Right. So the criteria should also contain which networks the bridge is intended to bridge to. So in this case, we are most probably talking about WAX and EOS.
Just trying to ponder it, obviously you would say WAX would be the most important, that WAX would tend to want to offer. And then yes, EOS I'd probably say is the next most popular bridge. I don't know, Telos, and then maybe UX.
Let's get into include null's question. Do you need to run a chain node to run the IBC service? Meaning, do you need to run nodes for the other chains too? Which is positive, right?
Ultimately, yes. It now has been tweaked. You can generate all of the proofs using an API node that'll just smash get blocks for days. But it runs off dfuse, it can run off state history, or now it can run off of just an API. So to generate the big proof database, 50 gigs, 70 gigs, whatever, you need a full node, API node from that network. To maintain it, it's kind of like Hyperion. As long as you've got current enough data, it's just sniffing each block, keeping it going.
Do you need a full node like from block 1?
API, yes. I do think if you start doing like some heavy proof validations, it uses the history provider in like the UI to try to do some validations. But a lot of people tend to use public APIs for that. It's not, the actual service itself is basically grinding off of an API. We have it local, but you need to start. If you start from scratch, you need a full block 1 log. If you already have it built and just need to maintain it going forward, you could be just a trimmed API.
Okay. So that certainly makes it a little more difficult than just announcing it as a quality of life APIs, because there's some infrastructure underlying.
May I chime in? I think the biggest problem was all this, that it's not really easy to actually acquire working full node EOS for EOS or some other less popular chains than Wax. Because from Wax perspective, it's rather easy because you just can download the backup, which we have plenty, full backup log. And
I can give you a quick answer on that. Because the nations and their lovely diffuse service and the way they wrote the thing, you can actually jumpstart it with the diffuse. So I personally ran through it and grinded it just because it was just as easy to do it, but because we have all the nodes. But and that's why you'll notice in there's some GPRC fire hose for each one. I think it's for EOS on that one, but the great news is you can actually jumpstart it. I mean, and it doesn't even smash diffuse, as I understand, but don't be too concerned about having to maintain a full, I think it's like 3.5 terabyte block log for EOS too. But anyway, it's lived a long life over the past 6 months I've worked with them. Originally, it only supported diffuse, then it started supporting state history, then now ultimately it supports the API, which obviously is much easier than diffuse, but
I'm just trying to say that, since it's diffuse, you cannot depend on it 100%. And if you want to spin up something from ground up and yourself, first possible.
Diffuse is only needed to jumpstart it. So you can run off of an API node once you use diffuse to go back and get all the history and fill it in for you. So you don't have to rely on diffuse going forward. You really just need it there to save you having to build a full API and grind it. You also don't have to go all the way back to block 1. There's some crazy mathematical calculations, but there's really certain block numbers at where they deployed the contract in the chain. So actually, because Wax was so late to deploy the contract, the block number is much later than, say, like on EOS or something like that. But for the sake of the argument, the diffuse is only needed to jumpstart it and get it started, or you can do it on your own. I'm just saying it's definitely an option. Going forward, you would use an API, which could be trimmed, assuming it's at the relatively current time.
Understood.
So just going by the example in the environment configuration file, you can specify a starting point to sync, like a blockade. And then this blockade gets used when you bootstrap it.
You can, I'll warn you that it's probably better to go ahead and do the whole chain or the whole life cycle of the IBC contract, right? Not so much the current one, but because we've run into issues, and the Boyd crew also runs some IBC stuff too. So what would happen is if you had a node that didn't have all the previous proofs, like Avril would have some retries or some lookups or something, and it's like Hyperion, it would be, or a node, it would say, nope, that just doesn't exist. Well, it exists, you just didn't index far enough back. So I would say you can jumpstart it, but if you're going to provide a public infrastructure, and I mean, it'll get less and less as we go down the road, but it has burned us a couple of times where the beginning index may not be far enough back for somebody that tries to go back and verify a previous proof or something like that. I get you. What he was doing, but we went back and re-indexed all the way from the beginning of the range to help fix that, because it would just say, nope, doesn't exist. That's an invalid transfer. You're going to jail.
It's safe to assume that this component still requires some elaboration in terms of documentation and probably the history depth, etc., or it's everything established already.
I mean, it's going to be a breathing organism, I'm sure, but no, it's a refined product. We've been running it for 6 months. I mean, it's much better now and much simpler, and I generally say the documentation's there. It's not crazy. It's just two services, a back-end indexing service and a front-end WebSocket that connects to it. Now you run all four of them, you know, you got a lot of ports and communications and stuff like that, but it's about 50 gigs per chain right now. So it's not a heavy light proof database, you know, I mean, 50, 60 gigs per, pretty light. But the reason I bring it up is that Avril's run into it before. I mean, I don't know whether he runs his own or not, but I know he uses ours, maybe SAS over it. Boyd, there's just not a lot of options for it. But if the idea is to have this IBC service available, would be to have multiple people providing it. Because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to just be, I'm here, use me as needed. But yes, there'll definitely be some polishing that's going to be coming with it, I can assure you.
Okay.
Anyway.
A recommendation, how many at least should be running this service on Wax? And is there any
it's kind of like, I'd say it's like Hyperion. You know, I mean, having 30 of them probably isn't helpful. I mean, they all need to be reliable, but people are, there's one or two, I think, right now. And then when the issues get, you know, we fix them and get them going, but there's no incentive to run them right now. So that's fundamentally kind of the problem with it is who's asking for them to be running and who's, you know, incentivizing them. But
okay. I think
more than one.
I think it's safe to assume that we should use rule of thumb that quality over quantity. But if we have a big quantity of quality, APIs, nodes, etc., it's not a bad situation for us. So just the main factor has to be quality.
Okay, got it. Yeah, let's talk about quality metrics for this one. What shall we be looking at to verify that someone is hosting a nice service?
The bad news is it doesn't make it too particularly easy, because normally your publicly exposed services are WebSocket, which if you talk to it, I mean, it will tell you, you know, earliest proofs, and you could check it and see if it's current block, kind of at the WebSocket level. The light proof database does have a status, which will return a JSON, you know, last block index, and then we query that against the head block of a node and then know whether it's in sync. So generally, is it online? Is it in sync? I don't know whether it shows the earliest block index, but we could probably get them to add that if we wanted to, just so it could be, are you sure it's completely indexed and providing all the valid proofs? But, and then like I say, how do you do it across at least 4 different networks? And, you know, they obviously have varying use levels. But check a status, make sure, you know, you're not doing the IBC relays, interestingly enough. You know, I mean, you're just kind of reading the chain and providing hints and shortcuts. They still push their own transactions to whatever API nodes they want. That makes sense? I mean, this is really kind of like atomic assets, almost like a helper service.
Yeah.
As I understand it.
Totally got it. Thanks for the input on that.
Sure.
We are
I'm happy to
going.
speak more if y'all want to, you know, offline in a separate conversation. I sent Joseph some scripts, you know, that we use to monitor our those endpoints.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet.
You made me do that at 5:30 in the morning. Nah, what is?
That's my job, man. I have to wake up here in the morning.
There you go. Joseph,
So you are
hits me up
useful
for
the rest of the
technical
day.
questions at 5:30 in the morning. That's my life. So
Yeah,
anyway,
you know,
happy to.
next time I'm not going to type you. I'm going to call you.
Touche. Anyway,
for
yes,
that.
happy to.
Okay. We'll surely get back to this. So any of the other topics you guys want to talk through?
Yeah, well, I have, I thought it's a quick question, but, well, it's not. So
Go for it.
We had a incident with block producer last week, which I mentioned, and I outlined the overall problem that we had. So I just want to clarify, since our tech evaluation periods have changed, I just want to understand how to categorize this issue. So we had the network problem, which I think was not directly on the block producer, because block producer machine was fine, everything was fine. But my monitoring told me that we had increased delays for network reach out. So basically this was the main cause for our missing single missing round. So basically what was the problem? That we had increased times for grabbing the blocks and transactions from the network, which actually caused this specific round miss. And if I understand correctly, we had 95% of availability previously. And I am trying to find the more detailed SLA for this now, and I cannot
check the version 5.3. With the version 5.3, we moved to a fixed round number you can miss.
So
And
it's less than 2, and if it's less than 2, then 2 points. Is that correct?
less or equal to 2.
Okay.
So you can miss up to 2 rounds without any penalty.
Okay, understood. Thank you. So
Almost impossible.
Just one. Maybe.
No.
Is it possible to add maybe some explanation, because I do not understand. I did not understand from the first glance. What does it mean? If it's less than 2 missed, then it's 2 points.
Did you see the brackets right now?
Yeah, but I think maybe I do not understand English clearly, or maybe I don't know. It's not really clear, but yeah, maybe it's me. So yeah, I know now. I understand what's the evaluation and the SLA for this, but maybe newcomers would not understand it completely if we do not add proper explanation. If anyone can support this claim, if not, just forget it. And
I had this issue originally. last month I had issue as well, and I was speaking to Kafer on the GitHub, right? There was like open discussion. Like I just didn't understand it. And then he explained it to me, and I get it now. But I was the same.
Okay. Well, that's.
But that was still with percentages, right? That was before we moved to fixed rounds.
Yeah, I mean, what I just did not understand for this explanation, which is less than 2 missing rounds, it says that if it's less than 2 missing rounds, then you lose 2 points. And
no, actually, it's the other way around, because it's if you have less than 2 rounds, less or equal, then you get 2 points.
Okay, then it's me. Okay,
it's not. Because it's not a losing. In this case, it's not a losing. The penalty is different. I think the penalty is if you lose more than 41 rounds, then you lose points.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Giannis, you can tell them to reach out to me if once the chat. I assume Igor is going to pick that up. Anyway. Babel, the whole point of that is just pray to the BP gods your stuff doesn't break.
Yeah.
Because if it does, it's impossible to fix it in time.
You see, that problem that we had last week, it was literally the same problem that we had on at the beginning of September this year. So it was the same indicator and same problem, but I understood it as a problem in data centers. So basically I had to switch to backup, and I have already spun up another hardware for this, and I already tested it, and looks like it works better, because this is some kind of situation which I basically do not have any control over. So I cannot control how our service providers in our data centers do their routing. Maybe that they had some BGP switch, and they had kind of bigger route for my outgoing packages, and it's not clear. I do not have the control over core network, and this is hard to identify.
Hashtag BP life, baby.
Yeah. So to explain our train of thought here was that occasionally we have guilds that just miss 1 round. That happens. Some fluke in the network or whatever. And if it's more, it usually means something broke. And then within 8 rounds, usually a failsafe is able to trigger either moving you to a different BP, depending on your setup, or unregistering, and you're actually going out of the schedule. So that's what we have seen so far. Yeah. We have seen this. The most common thing is this 1 round miss and coming back. And then what we've seen is a lot is this missing 2 to 3 rounds, then unregistering, and then being out of the schedule within 6 to 7 rounds total. So that's the most common setup we've seen over the past years. That's why we picked them as follows. So essentially, our idea was, Ross?
And the big one was that you recover in the 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you recover within 2 weeks.
Biggest one.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference.
Yeah, you recover within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you are only penalized if you actually have more than 41, and then you just lose points. And to actually be pushed out, you have to lose like 250 or something.
Yeah, fun fact, Pavel. Back whenever they first started doing this, I think I was the poster child. Yes, I had.
Oh yeah, you were
with my BP
when you went to sleep.
Was going nuts.
Yeah,
and they literally tried to kick me out of the network for like 45 days. That's
because that was the ruling back in the day, and then we said, okay, now we start introducing penalties. So if you ever get a penalty, thanks to Michael.
The gift that keeps on giving. Anyway, so, but hey, for the record, I'm glad to see the OIGs have evolved. And I mean, it's tough, but yeah, you got to have some standards, and it's not impossible, but sometimes, yeah, shit happens and it's outside of your control.
Yeah.
But the good news is, at least if you drop out of like active, now it's not as, you know, if you drop down to 22, and before it was just, I mean, all of a sudden you're having to fire people for a month, right? At least now it's not detrimental that the network provider had a little bit of a blip.
The pay gap was so insane.
Correct.
It was like
it's come a long way.
You were earning like 3 times the amount back in 2022 between slot 21 and 22. So that was just. I'm glad we could.
7 missed rounds were really expensive. My mom were more than 7, though, in all fairness. But
I think it has improved to the better. I think when I started exactly 2 years ago, 2 years and 2 months ago, it was like 1 monthly evaluation. So it put you out of schedule for 4 weeks at least, depending on the time of the incident, potentially also longer. Then we went to 6 weeks. Then we went to 6 weeks plus the technical evaluation every 3 weeks. But we had this overlap in the technical evaluations, which carried over the penalty because it was applied for 30 days. And now we are getting there. So every 2 weeks, a reset on the stats, because you shouldn't be double punished. I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
We think that's a totally acceptable environment now to have incidents, which happens.
Were you there whenever I unregged? I unregged the whole month, and I only regged just to get the OIG rating because I couldn't miss blocks because y'all would kick me off the network. So
we added
unregged the entire month.
We added penalties to the contributions table for now. So you might receive a penalty if you try something like this, even during full evaluations. But yeah, that's another thing we wanted to just slightly show you because you may find it changed. We split up since we split up the cycle into 2 weekly technical evaluations and then full evaluations. We also split the tables for the contributions and the infrastructure. So now at the top of your guilds page, you will find a total score sheet, which holds the latest contribution score with detail in which evaluation, and then the infrastructure score, which also shows which technical evaluation has been used for this. And then right after the requirements, product sheet, ecosystem development sheet, as usual. And then we get into the funny part, the new tables for the technical evaluation, which is only the technical evaluations we are conducting. And then also when we do full evaluations, which we did last time, we now have a separate table for the contributions. So we don't have the whole table on every evaluation, but we will just be adding new tables for the tech ops. So that's something I missed to show you in case you visit your guild after we did the voting later tonight. The only thing that really changes for you is the score sheet at the top for now for this technical evaluation, and also the table for the technical evaluation, which is happening right now. So those are the relevant parts. Right. What else do we have to discuss? We are in the open agenda, so feel free to talk about anything that you want to talk about.
May I ask, I don't know, stupid question or stupid proposal or something like that? So I'm trying to understand whether we are, whether there were any incentives to actually apply Wax blockchain for other stuff than just trading and sharing NFTs. Whether there are any incentives for this, and maybe someone thought about adopting Wax blockchain because it's really cool blockchain, fast, cheap to use, reliable, good community. And it would be really cool to use it for something different and maybe increase the popularity of this blockchain. Maybe it's stupid. Maybe stop me here
No, that's actually a good question. So I think the main focus for WAX has always been NFTs and token, but it has evolved through WAX team efforts to become a chain for collectibles and redeemable collectibles. So that's what drives the chain a lot at the moment, including the Funko collection. But the long-term effort is also to build all the tools around like proper blockchain gaming. So having your game SDK integrated properly into WAX, enabling a login for the user and using those assets inside your SDK. So I think that's strategically the part which is being developed right now. This question actually belongs also into the Twitter space tomorrow. So I kindly ask you to join the Twitter space tomorrow with Lucas and ask him exactly what you asked here. But yeah, after all, the last 2 years have been what they have been, deepest of bear market I've been part of. At the end, after all, it suffers from crypto, let's call it like this, because there are many projects or blockchains out there that promise what we are doing, but don't execute it that well. And I think that's where the sentiment for blockchain gaming or NFT collectibles, redeemables, and tokens on chain, that's where we suffer from. Even though we execute it very well, there are like 9 of 10 projects that don't execute it very well, and that's where the sentiment is built. Unfortunately, also for us as a WAX blockchain.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
So that's just my. I'm not speaking as the OIG right now. That's just my personal assessment of the situation. Like the terms blockchain gaming, NFTs, collectibles on chain. So that's unfortunately that's the sentiment at the moment.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I just I run partially EOS infrastructure, and we kind of use it partially for a couple of our projects as well. And my main concern about EOS that it's kind of general purpose blockchain, and it's not better than WAX. And the WAX is kind of, in terms of ecosystem, community, etc., it's times better than EOS. And that's why I asked this question, because WAX would be really cool blockchain as general purpose blockchain. But having this specific as NFT, gaming, etc., but doesn't prevent to use it for different tasks. So just my point.
Oh, right. So what we have, like, technically is a nice foundation just from the technical perspective to accomplish many creative things. That's for sure. And the ecosystem that has been built in the past 2 years it is just one of a kind, like speaking of quality and software and tools. So that's one of a kind. I think what we really are lacking, but that's an industry problem, is the developer onboarding and the onboarding of companies that actually want to build on this blockchain, because our blockchain has this dedicated resource model, has this performance, has those tools in the ecosystem. So we are lacking a little bit the developer onboarding, the project onboarding, but that's not easy to achieve. And I'm pretty sure it's pretty hard to blame one or the other entity that marketing is not running very well. And how well could it run if the sentiment was not bad? If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I understand.
So if people just don't want to build blockchain gaming at the moment because they are looking for the best market and not the best quality and tools and blockchain, Yeah, then they are going to continue creating half-baked collections on Ethereum just because of the liquidity on Ethereum, on OpenSeas and stuff.
Yeah, that's true, unfortunately.
But yeah, feel free to join tomorrow's Twitter space and ask Lucas because their long-term effort to strategically build the chain is finding ground in the past month, and I'm sure they're not stopping there, and they need any feedback they can get, especially also from you guys who are builders and developers on the chain, you know.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. So what else do we have to discuss today? 3 minutes. Still,
this is going to be the first time we actually finish on time, eh?
Yeah, probably, because this time the agenda was a little shorter. I'll also try to continuously compress it into 20 minutes at the beginning, so we can get like 40 minutes of discussion at the end. What also greatly helps is that if you have topics that you want to discuss, and sometimes complicated topics, just leave the feedback prior to the roundtable and we can pick it up and can have our thoughts before it. Kiefer.
Yeah, I just want to collect some feedback. I think we can also cut the introduction, the first 20 minutes shorter. I don't think we need to dive that deep into chain health if there's nothing serious or important to report.
Okay, that's great. Any other?
I think the others agree.
Yeah. Any other feedback for the agenda? Something that you guys want to see or don't want to see at the beginning of the call?
Refreshments.
Okay. Nothing else. I guess then we are just leaving out the network health part and going straight into guidelines and evaluations, and of course some minor updates that happen from the Wax team side and our side. Yeah, that's it for today. Let's close the official recording. Thanks everyone for attending. 20 attendees today. Pretty awesome. We are growing.